everyone giving their time this morning. I know it's a big time commitment to come both Monday and Tuesday. So I want to thank everyone for that. And just, remind everyone of our meeting rules and our schedule and our agenda, and work to make sure that we get taken care of everything that we have planned out for us today. And just to remind ourselves that we're all here because we all want to do what's right. We all come together because we all feel passionate about this subject. And that sometimes it's only with gratitude for each other and for the work that we do that our work becomes stronger and richer. So thank you so much, and I think we'll go ahead with the opening pledge and the national anthem. I hate starting the Pledge of Allegiance, so I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Tina, for the last time, do you want to go through the meeting rules and agenda?
Well, question and comments, end of the presentation. Help us to adhere to the timeline. Can you go back to that? Okay, thank you. I should know these by now.
It's on the little sheet there.
Yeah, participate and ask questions for clarification. State your name and affiliation when speaking. Don't dominate or have side conversations. Listen to and respect other points of view. Make comments at a microphone, very important. Please bring the microphone up to you and speak into it. And take a moment and put your phones and pagers on silent.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Do you want to move into agency updates with Mr. Jack Craig?
Mr. Jack Craig.
This is Jack Craig with the Department of Energy. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Once again, thank you for your service on the cab. And just a little heads up, I'm going to be leaving here about 10 o'clock this morning. We have some important visitors here on site today. We have a few staff members of the Energy and Water Appropriations Committee here for a tour and discussion. So very important to interact with them as part of our budget process. So Terry Spears will be taking my place here later this morning. On to the update. Anna River, I believe in the newspaper, so I'll talk a little bit about that to begin with. There have been 11 confirmed sightings of drones or unmanned aerial systems flying over the SRS airspace in recent weeks. Each sighting triggers security alerts and notifications, as well as appropriate responses by protective forces. Although airspace over SRS is not currently restricted by FAA, these UAS or drones do pose a safety and security concern. SRS policy on position and/or use of UAS are strictly prohibited on site. The FAA lists SRS airspace in the national airspace and establishes it as a national security area. This consists of notice to pilots to voluntarily avoid SRS airspace and to not fly below 2,000 feet. DOE and NNSA are in the process of requesting restricted airspace for all NNSA facilities and SRS. We have made our employees aware of the SRS policy regarding UAS and encourage them to promptly notify SRS operations of any sightings. On July 12th, DOE invoked the dispute resolution process under the FAA with the US EPA Region 4 and South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control over completing bulk waste removal efforts for 2 tanks by September 30th, 2016. DOE requested an extension to August 31st, 2017 for Tank 15 and an extension to August 31st, 2018 for Tank 10 for completing bulk waste removal from these tanks. The extensions were requested due to various technical considerations and testing of a new at-tank treatment process. The parties will now enter the informal dispute resolution phase involving FAA project managers from each agency. If the issue is not resolved, it will move to the formal phase of the FAA dispute resolution process. Savannah River Remediation awarded a contract for tank closure cesium removal earlier this month. The TCCR is designed to enhance the removal of bulk waste from underground radioactive high-level waste storage tanks at SRS. The contract, awarded to Westinghouse Electric Company, LLC, is valued at $12.4 million, and the new process is expected to be operational in late spring 2018. In January 2016, SR received commercial supplier proposals for the procurement of equipment needed for the TCCR technology demonstration at the site's Tank 10. Since receipt of these proposals, SRS has been reviewing and evaluating supplier proposals. The technology selected is an ion exchange process with an at-tank deployment. Commercial vendors have demonstrated success with cesium removal using ion exchange from similar waste types. The site-wide strategic plan is in development and will be shared in draft form with the public for comments this fall. All nuclear materials facilities at SRS are in sustained operations. In H Canyon, both the contractors and DOE's readiness assessment for first uranium cycle and head-in operations have been completed. Dissolution of spent nuclear fuel is expected to begin in August. The Canadian Target Residue Material, TRM, modifications are operationally complete. The contractor's readiness assessment for TRM is scheduled to begin on August 8th, 2016. The DOE readiness assessment is scheduled to begin in September 2016. HB Line continues to process plutonium feed material for the MOX facility or for disposition of the material. K Area continues to perform work for ensuring safe storage of plutonium and support shipment of plutonium to HB Line for processing. K Area received a shipment of plutonium from Japan in June. K Area is on schedule to begin downblending of plutonium in September for eventual disposal at WIP. L Area continues to support fuel shipments from foreign and domestic research reactors. In July, a fuel handling tool unexpectedly disengaged while handling fuel for identification purposes in L Basement. The fuel was not damaged and the facility entered into a limiting condition of operation. Inspection of the tool did not identify any issues that would cause it to inadvertently disengage. L Area is working on a path forward regarding the use of the tool. The 235F facility continues to address actions for completion of the implementation plan for DNFSB recommendation 2012-1. Draining windows for fuels for cells 3 through 5 have been completed, and 7 master manipulators have been removed from cells 3 through 5. Removal of outer windows for cells 3 through 5 will be performed in August, followed by enhanced characterization to determine how much material is contained in the cells. The final environmental assessment on spent nuclear fuel from Germany is currently in DOE internal review with no specified date for release at this time. On liquid waste operations, work is proceeding to initiate bulk waste removal in late September for Tank 15. Defense Waste Processing Facility is operating and has poured 106 canisters this fiscal year for a total of 4,076 canisters to date. The double stack project continues and has successfully removed 220 crossbars. 106 of 150 positions are ready for double stacking. The Saltstone facility is operational and has processed a total of 887,857 gallons of low-level waste into grout. A readiness review on the first of two 60,000-gallon salt solution receipt tanks has been completed. ARP MCU is operational and has processed a total of 891,891 gallons of salt waste this fiscal year. The 3H evaporator remains shut down due to a leak in the evaporator pot, and leak identification continues. SRR is in the process of installing an interior liner in Saltstone Disposal Unit number 6. Sandblasting of the walls, columns, and pedestals is complete. Application of a conductive primer coating to the walls is complete and will soon begin on the columns and pedestals. Receipt of the first batch of liner material is expected by the end of the month, and installation of the liner is scheduled to occur in August. Infrastructure to connect the disposal cell to the Saltstone processing facility has been completed and is awaiting final tie-in to the facility. Salt waste processing facility testing and commissioning is underway, with radioactive operations expected December 2018. On the D area ash project, the first layer of the cover has been installed at the 488-D4 coal ash landfill. Installation of the geosynthetics began in May, which includes a clay liner and a drainage liner. 20 inches of common fill was placed on top of the geosynthetics at the end of every day's installation to protect the layers from rain. The geosynthetic cover installation for 488-4D was completed last week, with mechanical completion for phase 1 to be completed by the end of August. The contractor began in earnest on phase 2 of the project in mid-July with dewatering of 489-D. On June 8, 2016, a leak occurred at the basin of the 482-A service fire water tank. The leak developed from about 1 gallon per minute to about 25 gallons per minute. A temporary fix designed by SRS Engineering was placed over the leak site by a team of divers on June 15, 2016. The fix required covering a hole with a 10-inch square, 1/4 inch thick flexible neoprene type pad anchored by a 4-inch by 6-inch weight with handle. The leak was reduced to 13 drops per minute. SRS Engineering is working on the design of a more permanent fix within the next 2 to 3 weeks. In June, DOE issued their official acceptance letter for Ameresco's biomass cogeneration facility phase 2, our third boiler, construction project. The new boiler officially started operations on June 30th, 2016. The phase 2 construction project added a third biomass boiler to the Burma Road facility. The third boiler adds security to steam operations and allows Ameresco to provide additional electricity to the site. The South Carolina National Guard Engineer Unit completed its annual training at SRS in June. The unit completed work relating to Phase 2 of 288-F ash basin. Phase 2 consisted of setting up permanent sediment traps, establishing erosion control, and movement of ash to prescribed locations. SRNL provided support for the FBI Diamond Thunder exercise and hosted the U.S.-China Peaceful Uses of Nuclear Technology meeting. SRNS developed an enhanced attenuation strategy at the mound site that has accelerated the timeline for groundwater cleanup by over a decade and lowered costs by $5 million. SRNL also provided support to the Portsmouth facility on how robotics technology can be quickly deployed to facilitate their D&D mission and improve safety for the worker. A short WIP update. Workers at the waste isolation pilot plant are now well into the second month of cold operations at the facility, and while significant progress has been made, much remains to be accomplished in order to meet the December 2016 projected time frame for restarting transuranic operations. In addition to cold operations, the Carlsbad Field Office and Nuclear Waste Partnership program managers are focused on a number of activities necessary to ensure the safety of the workers at the site, including ground control objectives, bolting of the roof and the underground, completion of readiness and testing activities necessary for interim ventilation system to become operational, and repairs and upgrades to fire suppression systems, both on vehicles and in the underground, that will be required for restart. Secretary Moniz directed the Carlsbad Field Office to reevaluate the critical path schedule for reopening WIP and has emphasized that safety is paramount. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, for the update. And I know I appreciate having the handout. It makes it so much easier to follow. Do we want to start questions from around the table?
Okay,
David?
Jack, you mentioned that the David Hoyle, Cab. You mentioned that the SWPF testing and commissioning is underway, but you said that it's expected to start operations in December of 2018, but your written remarks say after December 2018. Is it
Yeah,
in 2018 or later?
Our schedule has a early start date of December 2018. We have to go, the commissioning activities have to be completed by Parsons. They will do what's called an operational readiness review, which is their senior management review of their readiness to operate, and then DOE will conduct an independent readiness review, and that should be, our plan is to complete that by the end of December 2018. Following that, they are authorized to operate.
And can you comment on the status of negotiations with DHEC on missing the initial startup date for SWPF?
We continue to have negotiations, and we had a meeting as early as I believe last week, and we're continuing to make progress. Don't have a specific date for resolution at this time.
Okay. I read in the state newspaper this week that water systems that get their drinking water from groundwater in the Midlands area of the state is especially acidic and could be prone to lead being leached from pipes. Has that been a problem at Savannah Riverside? Do they treat their pipes to prevent that?
I'll have to get back with you on that. We may have, I don't know if Mike Mikolanis here? Here he is. Mike may be able to help you with that. Michael's our assistant manager for our infrastructure work at site, on site.
Mike Mikolanis, DOE. We'll have to look into that, David. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Thank you, Mike. Does Savannah Riverside get their drinking water from groundwater, or is it from this river?
We do get it from underground.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, did you have something?
I'm almost afraid to bring this up. We're on the cusp of something, and unmanned aerial systems sighting at SRS. There are several paragraphs here talking about it. But what concerns me is that there doesn't seem to be anything anybody can do about it. The FAA sets out rules, and we have absolutely no idea whose drones these are. and they're only becoming more sophisticated. I'm speaking as someone who survived 3 terrorist bomb attacks on his site and a ground attack, and I'm not, security is just something that drives me crazy. So is there any thought put into this at all? You know, countering drones? Because I haven't kept up with the technology at all.
This is Jack Craig with DOE. Our capabilities, our ability to respond to the drones are limited. There are FAA requirements that allow the drones to operate. As of this time, there are rules such as drones cannot fly lower than or higher than 400 feet, and private drones, you're required to maintain line of sight with the drone. But other than that, the FAA requirements don't allow us to do much other than track them at this point. And what we do is we do try to track them. As I said, each type of drone is sighted on site. There is a security alert. And a security alert means that our security forces attempt to track it. And there are various notifications we make in each instance, both with the FAA, FBI, our DOE headquarters security. So each instance we make those contacts in an attempt to understand who's flying the drone, and if we could ever find out who it is, what their purpose is. That's about all we can do, is question the person if we could ever find out who was doing it. So we believe it is a security concern. We believe it's a safety concern also, because certainly if a drone would crash on site in an accident, it could hurt one of our facilities or one of our workers. So we are working with headquarters to do what we can with FAA to put a little more teeth into that. FAA could designate the Savannah River site as a no-fly zone, and if that occurred, similar to at your airports, drones would not be allowed within a certain radius of the site and could not fly over the site. But that process takes a while. So we've started that internally within DOE, and we'll be making that request to FAA. That's about all we can do at this point.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from
Thank
around
you.
the table? David?
Sorry, one more question. David Hoyle, CAB. Were there any DOE notices of violation, or not DOE, but were there any regulatory notices of violation received or any self-reports of non-compliances at the site in the past since we had our last meeting?
This is Mikolanis from the Department of Energy again. No, there were not.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Craig. Oh, okay, I thought Marilyn had something. And then I guess we'll have our EPA update from Ms. Diedre Lloyd with the Environmental Protection Agency.
Good morning. For those of you that may not know me, I'm Diedre Lloyd. I'm one of the EPA project managers that works on the sites at SRS. Rob Pope, the FFA manager for EPA, sends his regrets and wishes he could be here. However, he's engaged in other activities. With reference to the high-level waste tank system, a request, as Mr. Craig alluded to, was made on an extension for bulk waste removal for 2 tanks on September 30th of this year. Both EPA and South Carolina denied this request. As a result, DOE has invoked informal dispute regarding this extension request. EPA remains confident that we can resolve the dispute and move forward with cleanup of the tanks. In Indy area, EPA continues to work with DOE and South Carolina to overcome the toxicity issues associated with water and get the ash consolidated and capped. NC area, as noted during the last CAB, EPA continues to work with DOE and South Carolina to address the disturbance in the disposal area due to Forest Service activity. The 3 parties have come to an agreement regarding the sampling that needs to be done, and DOE has submitted a draft sampling plan to define whether or not any of the waste has spread due to the violation of institutional controls. Thanks, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lloyd. Do we have questions from around the table? All right. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have Shelly Wilson with South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here to talk with you all today. So I know you've seen Trey Reed from DHEC around. He doesn't often sit here at the table, but we're glad to have him today, and I'm going to let him give you an update, and then I'll follow up.
Thank you. Like Shelly mentioned, I'm Trey Reed from the South Carolina DHEC office here in Aiken. At the last combined cab meeting in Savannah, I mentioned that Kim Brinkley had recently resigned from the Aiken DHEC office in order to accept a position at the Savannah River National Lab. Since then, we've posted her vacant position, and matter of fact, last week we held interviews. We've submitted a name to our HR group so that they can perform all of that background paperwork so that we can hopefully have a new face here in this chair by the next meeting. One other thing I wanted to mention, our most recent data report discs for our environmental surveillance and oversight program are on the table right outside this room, so please feel free to grab a copy if you'd like one. I do have some more. If we happen to run out, just let me know. I'll be glad to get you a copy. All that information will soon be posted on our website as well. As you may or may not be aware, we've recently got a new logo. So our webmaster is very busy overhauling the DHEC website with the new logo and some format changes, but our data report should be up soon. And I think we may have mentioned it before, but we do have an easy way to find that information now on our website. If you go to www.scdhec.gov/SRS, everything will be there, so you don't have to go to a real long website now to find our info. Much easier.
Thank you so much, Trey. Yeah, he mentioned our new logo. It's lively and hopefully approachable, so check it out on our website. We also have a new Don't Waste Food South Carolina campaign. So if you'd like to go to our website and check that out, it's just tips on how to decrease food waste, food that goes to landfills. And so if you can help decrease that food waste and help to use the food that we have, it would be helpful to everyone. So we talked a lot about lots of different topics yesterday, and I'll just give you my take on remaining risk at the site. So in my mind, we have three big areas of remaining risk at Savannah River site. One is the storage of plutonium. One is the storage of spent fuel there at the site, and of course the high-level waste, which we've talked a lot about in the past. Now, for two of those risk areas, Congress actually gave DOE authority to regulate themselves for plutonium and spent fuel, for nuclear materials and spent fuel. So DHEC doesn't have any regulatory authority from Congress to oversee plutonium or spent fuel. So just to say that up front, the other area, the high-level waste area, we do have authority to regulate, as we've talked about many times in the past. So the high-level waste is still a huge challenge there at the site. There's a large amount there. Of course, we've talked about the 36 million gallons of the highly radioactive and toxic waste in the tanks that are aging at Savannah River site. Our focus is for all of that waste to be treated and the tanks to be closed. And of course, there's an enforceable regulatory schedule for tank closures so that risk can be reduced. So the regulatory schedule for those tank closures in the future, that regulatory schedule is in jeopardy for two reasons. And one reason is the delay of the big treatment facility, the salt waste processing facility. And of course, we need treatment to happen on a large scale to be able to get waste out of the tanks for those tanks to close. So the delay of that big facility has a huge impact on, again, jeopardizing those future tank closure schedules. That's one reason. The other reason is that in recent years, of course, the budget has been slashed for DOE and for high-level waste, and that budget decrease has resulted in reduced waste treatment of what's existing, the existing capacity at the site. So that slowdown in waste treatment in recent years, coupled with the delay of the salt waste processing facility, again, if you can't treat the waste, get it out of the tanks, you can't close the tanks. And so those future tank closure schedules that are regulatory are all in jeopardy. We've mentioned the salt waste processing facility, that delay. There was a regulatory milestone in October of last year that DOE has missed to start up that facility. As Jack mentioned, we have been discussing that missed milestone, and actually many discussions recently, and we hope to come to resolution on that missed milestone. And as I keep saying, we think the future milestones are in jeopardy, and surely enough, we're seeing that DOE has requested an extension for 2 of those milestones that are due this year. And so it's just a foreshadowing of what, the concern that we have for all those schedules in jeopardy. So DOE has requested an extension. DHEC and EPA have said no. And as you've heard, we're currently in the dispute process. So there are a couple of areas that we're at odds right now. One is that salt waste processing facility startup date, and also on these 2 tank milestones that we are currently in dispute on. So, but the main issue that we feel is needed is maximized treatment. So from here moving forward, we believe that maximized treatment will put us all in the best position to get waste out of those tanks and the tanks to be closed as near to the current regulatory schedules as possible. So that is the main goal, getting maximized treatment online, the salt waste processing facility online as soon as possible. Any other treatment capability online and maximized to its fullest extent. Again, the name of the game is treatment. We need that to go forth heartily to be able to close those tanks on time. And of course, we also need DOE to increase the budget for liquid waste to be able to fuel all that hearty maximized treatment. So that concludes my remarks. Are there any questions?
Lewis?
Lewis Walters, CAB. Great presentation, Shelly. Can you hear me? Okay, here we go. Quick question. Could you detail the process that your department took in not granting the extensions by DOE? Could you explain what was involved, and whether or not the non-granting is part of any agreements that you have with DOE? Thank you.
Sure. So, and I'll just first clarify that the 2 tank milestones are, this process that I'm going to describe to you is very different from the process that we use for the salt waste processing facility missed milestone, okay? But for the 2 tank milestones, they are part of the federal facility agreement. They're regulatory schedules in that federal facility agreement, and that process is very prescriptive that we follow. So DOE asks for the extension. DOE lays out all of the justification for that extension request. And then DHEC and EPA, in this case, reviewed that justification, and we did not fully agree with it. There were several justifications listed, And we just didn't agree with all of those justifications. We thought DOE should have considered some other options. And because of that, we said no, we did not agree to the extension request. And again, that federal facility process gives us a certain number of days that we have to consider. And because we said no, the federal facility agreement allows DOE to say, well, you've said no, we're going to dispute this. And that's essentially what happened. And so from here on out, the process is very prescribed. It goes to a dispute resolution lower level team, so to speak, some designated people at DHEC, EPA, and DOE, and they all try to work it out. And if they can't work it out at that level, then it bumps up to another higher level management set of representatives. They try to resolve it at that level, and if it's not resolved at that level, it bumps up again a third time. So does that give you a good feel?
It does. Thank you.
I'd like to add a little bit to that.
Oh, yeah. You're
Um,
fine.
Diedre Lloyd with EPA. Is it work? Okay, sorry. So it's a very, as Shelly mentioned, it's a very prescriptive process. Right now, we're in what's called the informal dispute stage, and so we have talks scheduled for next month, and that'll involve the FFA managers and their respective counterparts, and maybe one level up, depending on agreements and things like that. So what they'll do is try and informally, they'll converse and see what's going on and see if they can reach a resolution. And Rob will be the party at the table, and he'll speak with his counterparts at DHEC and at DOE. And so they will or won't, reach consensus. Rob's confident that some type of agreement will be able to be reached. Now, at what step in the process, we don't know. But the next step, as Shelly mentioned, you go from informal to formal, and it's a very prescriptive time frame. And then you go in the next level up, which will be supervisors, division directors, and their respective counterparts. And then it moves up to regional levels and then HQ in the end. But we don't anticipate it going that far. We hope that everything will be resolved. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. David, did you have your card up?
Yes, thank you. David Hoyle, Cab. Shelly, can you tell me in the history of the SRS FFA, how many times you've entered dispute resolution?
That's a great question, David. Not very many. So let's see. I think we did, I think we have twice before. Two times before? Yes. So, and that is an excellent question because the FFA was put in place around 97, and since then we have operated smoothly. DOE has met all of its milestones, and we've, except for when they've requested an extension and we've had to go to dispute, only twice since 1997. So I think it speaks volumes as to how we've been able to make a lot of progress. We've had a lot of cleanup at the site, especially in soil and groundwater. We've been able to work things out, except for those two times, and those two times we did eventually work things out. So again, that past history speaks strongly for us to be able to work together. Our main concern right now is that we get treatment back online. And frankly, if we get treatment, hardy treatment committed to, then I'm sure we will be able to move forward in a similarly smooth fashion.
Thank you for that answer. What troubles me is it does seem that these disputes are becoming more frequent, and that seems to bode well for bode ill for the future. And I support your emphasis on maximizing treatment in your negotiations. And we all know that once it becomes operating, the SWPF will be capable of quite voluminous throughput. Are you concerned that with Savannah Riverside's ability to adequately feed SWPF as well as to handle the output from it?
Again, this is just my opinion based on experience. If DOE gets the money to fuel and run salt waste processing facility, then I believe that they can maximize treatment there. So again, our past experience is that we've been able to work well together. And in many instances, when Savannah River Site has the money, Savannah River Site has been able to show instances of very, very high treatment capacities and treatment rates. In recent years, that has been hampered by the drop in budget. So does that answer?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Susan?
Susan Corbett, Cab. Well, I've got Diedre and Shelly here. I have some. We're talking about groundwater, drinking water, and I just wondered, Shelly, are you aware that the EPA is proposing to increase the amount of radionuclides in drinking water, some 10 times above the current level? And I wonder if you could speak to that, or has DHEC weighed in on that? The comments were pending.
And Susan, I'm not aware of the particular proposed rulemaking that you're thinking
I'll send
of.
it to you in an email. And Diedre, can you speak to that? Are you aware of that? What's going on with that?
That's something that's probably taking place at headquarters, and since it's rulemaking, but I will look for some information and get back to you on that also.
Thank you.
Do you want to go ahead?
John McMichael, Cab. Shelly, question, kind of a statement and a question too. It looks like the elephant in the room is the funding, correct? I mean, that's in your last statement.
Yes, sir.
Not understanding exactly all the backside things that DHEC does other than negotiations with the site and the oversight part of it. What kind of partnering do you do with DOE to focus that concern back to the federal government, to Washington?
Sure, that's a fair question. So we like to work with DOE to identify work scope. And again, I think that we've done a lot of that in the past. We've had 8 tank closures, so we've done a lot of that successfully. We believe, again, that the work scope in the future needs to have hardy treatment and to max out all the treatment capacities available. So once we agree on work scope, then DOE can figure out a dollar amount that would support that work scope. We very often will speak to our congressional delegation to let them know the kinds of budget levels that are needed to be able to support a certain work scope. We were actually up in D.C. doing that on it was July the 15th. So we like to be advocates of the DOE budget that is needed to be able to support hardy treatment and tank closure, and certainly open to other thoughts that you may have on how we can support the budget.
Okay. Do you have any formal position papers that you send to them, telling them what your concerns are directly with specifics?
We have in the past written letters to our delegation, so letting them know specific budget levels that would be a good support. So we have done that, and it's on file in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Craig?
Yeah, as we're talking about this, Jack Craig, the Department of Energy, as we're discussing budget, I just want to remind everyone of our budget request for FY17. The department requested $111 million more than our 16 enacted number was, and it was the largest increase of any site in the complex. So I think to Shelly's point, we do agree that funding the liquid waste program is our highest priority. That's reflected in our budget. The 17 request fully funds SWPF, fully funds all the activities necessary to connect our liquid waste system to SWPF. So when it's operational, it can operate to its maximum capacity. So, but where we're at, unfortunately, in the budget is like we are every year, it seems like, is that there isn't a budget passed for 17. It appears we're going to go into a continuing resolution as we start the new fiscal year, which means we'll be operating at our FY16 enacted level. So what that means, if that lasts the entire year, is that our $111 million request, which was more than we had in 16, would not be received. So what does that mean? It means we have to make a decision on priorities, what we go forward with, and how we spend what's allocated to us. So unfortunately, this is kind of a cycle that goes on every year. I think for the last 14 years, Congress has not passed the budget on time, and we've operated under a continuing resolution which takes us back to the prior year funding and restricts our ability to make the progress we all want to make. So I think the good news is the message is received. The department has requested adequate funding, and the next step is making sure that we, through the process of working with Congress, we get that approved.
If you certainly appreciate Jack's comment, and so and I definitely agree that the FY17 budget is a significant increase. So we're glad to see that. So so we're still trying to recover from the low budgets of 14, 15, and 16, but we are encouraged that the FY17 budget is significantly higher. So.
Thank you. Lewis, did you have a last question for DHEC?
Yes, I do. It's a three-parter. Lewis Walters, CAB. This is for both Shelly and Craig. Just real quick, Shelly, what level of funding? Because we're talking about increased budgets. What numbers are we talking about that would satisfy, in your opinion, or assist DOE in fulfilling those commitments? And Jack, if I could ask you this, the receivership of Japanese fuel, I think we talked about this some years ago in terms of receiving foreign fuels. Are there any monies attached, anything from Japan in regards to that shipment? And you could clarify for me, can those monies or funds be used at SRS, or does it go into the budget for DOE or the federal government? So, Shelly, first question would be, your piece would be, what you talked about increased budget. What does that mean? What numbers are you looking at that would satisfy your position? Mm-hmm. And Craig, just in terms of what monies are attached to the Japanese fuel, and I'm done.
Good questions there. So, and I'll have to plead a little bit that I'm not the expert on the DOE budget, but if you look at the FY14 number of 552 million, clearly way too low. That was a drop of like 182 million from a previous number. So 552 is low. 645 million. This year's FY17 request is much better. My feeling is that they would need still above the 645 million to be in really good stead, but I'd have to defer to the experts to give a definite number. But again, no doubt that 645 is much better than 552. Yeah. So and then also I'll let you know that that we have said to DOE. Again, we don't regulate plutonium or spent fuel coming into the site. Having said that, if DOE is planning to bring in waste receipts that produce waste that goes to the high-level waste tanks, then we think the NNSA part of DOE should be equitably funding that activity to account for the risk that we bear on the back end. And to us, that does not mean dollar for dollar, because you can't account for time. That delays time. And so it needs to be an equitable amount of dollars and resources contributed by the NNSA to make sure that we aren't bearing the risk longer. If anything, it should be equitable that we're bearing the risk shorter.
It's Jack Craig, DOE. We did receive funding from Japan for receipt of their plutonium, and but that funding is really there for the processing of that plutonium, and any shortfalls that we have in the processing is made up by the NNSA. And that funding is not really available for cleanup dollars. It's really focused on taking care of the plutonium that's received here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we'll hear the Georgia DNR update from Sean Hayes.
Good morning. Sean Hayes, Georgia DNR. Don't have much to update. We currently are involved in medical support training for drills involving plant vogel and plant hatch with 4 different hospitals: Burke Medical, Doctors Hospital, and Appling Hospital, and Meadows Regional. As you may remember, our program, the environmental radiation program, was rolled into the radioactive materials program last August. Our director, our manager, Travis Kartowski, has taken another position in North Carolina, and Irene Bennett is our acting manager. And we are currently going to, I think this end of this month, they're going to be putting out for a new manager.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? All righty. I guess it's time to move on to public comment. Do we have anyone signed up? Oh, perfect.
I'd like a comment on this issue from our DHEC rep, our EPA rec, and Mr. Craig. DOE has announced a reorganization for the cleanup offices, and the new office to cover all of these operations, plus others, will be called the Office of Field Operations. The units that will be eliminated include, these are mission units, include EM-20 and EM-30. EM-20 focuses on the disposal of radioactive waste stored in underground tanks and other nuclear materials. I don't know what other nuclear materials are. And EM-30 focuses on handling waste management. And I would like to know from each of these organizations, what is the anticipation of the impact on SRS and our schedules and our current projects, particularly the tanks?
It's Jack Craig, Department of Energy. That's correct. The DOE headquarters has undergone a reorganization at the headquarters level starting yesterday, actually. There were various changes made, and one of them was the replacement of about what they called 7 Deputy Assistant Secretary positions in their organizations with 3 new Deputy Assistant Secretary positions. The old functions, the EM-20 and EM-30 functions, I believe, have been absorbed into one of the 3 new positions. I don't have the details of that with me, but we certainly can provide, if people are interested, a briefing, maybe at the next meeting, about the reorganization and how it may or may not impact Savannah River. I would just add one of the other things, unique things about the reorganization. They do have a larger focus now on the Savannah River National Laboratory and providing additional focus and resources on the lab to help the lab address complex problems, not just at Savannah River, but across the entire complex. So we believe a greater focus on the lab and helping the lab address complex-wide issues will be good for the lab and good for the site.
And this is Shelly Wilson, DHEC. I'll add that I don't have any reason to think that the reorganization would have any adverse impact on the schedules.
EPA also echoes that sentiment. We have legally regulatory binding commitments within the FFA, and we don't anticipate those being jeopardized due to this reorg.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Clements with public interest organization Savannah Riverside Watch, and I live in Columbia, South Carolina, but I'm from Savannah. I just want to make a little bit of an update about a couple of issues and then one comment. The first thing, although the mixed oxide fuel program is not under the purview of the CAB, if plutonium is passed to EM to manage, it certainly will be of more concern, and there's already some plutonium that EM is managing. Jack mentioned the continuing resolution on the budget. It's kind of my impression on the MOX project that it will also fall under that, which means it would likely get the budget from this year, which is $340 million. And that amount of money keeps the project on a termination track. It's not enough to sustain it. I'm continuously hearing problems about design and construction of the project. I don't know if the draft language on requiring the Corps of Engineers to do another assessment of the project and the cost is going to go through, but we need a technical assessment both on the design and the actual construction, because I think there's some latent problems there that are going to cause great problems down the road if the project continues. But right now it's on a termination track by the congressional funding level. The second thing is on the Canadian liquid high-level waste that DOE wants to bring to the site, there remains concern by public interest organizations in Canada along shipping routes and here in South Carolina about this project. As you know, DOE has failed to prepare an environmental impact assessment on this, and they've also failed to perform a nuclear non-proliferation impact assessment. We heard on the German issue yesterday that neither NNSA or Environmental Management have prepared a nuclear non-proliferation impact assessment on the German material, which I think should be prepared. But on the Canadian material, this has not been prepared, and this is a grave oversight because the material can be, it does have highly enriched uranium in it in a liquid form. It can be down-blended in place by depleted uranyl nitrate. I mentioned yesterday that that's what is happening with a similar material in Indonesia, HEU, also of U.S. origin. We discovered a document where Natural Resources Canada was actually anticipating that the Canadian liquid waste would be down-blended in place and managed. So all I can say is stay tuned on that, and we'll see if DOE is going to prepare that EIS or the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Impact Assessment to actually look at handling that material in place in Canada. And the third thing, just briefly, I have a couple of copies printed out from the Department of State website of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. If anybody wants to take a look at it, it was discussed at some length yesterday, but I have 2 copies, so if anybody wants one, please ask me for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment? All right. Well, thank you so much. With that, it's 9:30, so I think we'll take a 15-minute break. 9:45?
Okay.
No. Oh, sorry.
No,
I didn't see you.
I'd like to provide a little extra information to Susan about the question she asked. Sure. I just spoke with John Richards, who's also an RPM on this site, and he's a health physicist. He's our radiation expert on the site. And he says that the drinking water increases that you're referring to, they're not in reference to safe drinking water. They're in reference to emergency response action levels. When you have an emergency responder out in the field, they have nothing to do with the safe drinking water. And I can give you his contact information or anyone else, and he can provide detailed information on this topic if you'd like. Sure.
Thank you. All right, so 9:45? Great. Thank you so much. right, I think we're gonna get back. I don't like to bang the gavel. You bang the gavel. Thank you. All right, we're going to move into the Administrative and Outreach Committee update with Eleanor Hobson.
Eleanor Hobson, Cab. Good morning and welcome to New Ellington, South Carolina. We are always seeking members. Our membership drive is in full swing, and we are seeking to replace several members next year. Membership applications can be found on the back table or on our website at cab.srs.gov. To be considered for the 2017-2019 term, please have your completed applications to us no later than September 1st, 2016. The members of the A&O Committee are Merlene Ennis, David Hoyle, Ed Sturkin, Lewis Walters, and a new member, Kathy Patterson. I am your chair, and I am seeking a vice chair. The CAB Spring 2016 Board Beat magazine is available, of course, and there are copies on the handouts table. Please be sure to thank James for an outstanding job. Members of the CAB, the outreach schedule is in your packet. Please note that we have some open dates for the public tour table. In addition, we will be seeking volunteers for STEM Day at the Kroc Center, and that is in Augusta on Broad Street. It is the Salvation Army Center, a new center, a beautiful place for meetings. That will be October 20th, STEM Day, and we need a minimum of 2 people from 8 until 1, and also for the Safety Expo at the Applied Research Center on October 19th and 20th. Watch your email for sign-up opportunities. We will send the schedule, and please sign up for the dates that you are available and can give us your professional time. If you would like more information on the CAB, of course, visit our website at cab.srs.gov. SIP is our student involvement program, which we are kicking off in September. So far, we have 1 applicant from USC Aiken for the fall semester, and we will introduce our applicant at the next full CAB meeting. Sign up for September 14th CAB tour. That is to tour the liquid waste facilities. And public tours are from the Applied Research Center, and we need your help for at least 1 hour from 12 until 1. The dates are on the handout, and we are recruiting CAB members. Keep that in mind. We are always recruiting for the CAB. There are no presentations today for the Administrative and Outreach Committee.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Does anyone have any questions for the Outreach Committee? David?
Could you repeat the deadline for CAB applications?
The CAB application deadline is September 1st. September 1st, 2016.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Eleanor. Tom, are you ready for facilities disposition?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm Tom Barnes. I'm chairman of Facilities Disposition and Site Remediation Committee. We have no open recommendations and no pending recommendations. Our next committee meeting will be August 16th from 4:30 to 6:20 here in New Ellington. I want to encourage all committee members to please be present if at all possible. We have two presentations today. We have one river monitoring presented by Beth Cameron very shortly. And after lunch, we will hear from Brian Hennessy on final Appendix E. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Beth.
Hello, I'm Beth Cameron. I work for the South Carolina DHEC in the Environmental Surveillance and Oversight Program. I'm going to be presenting on Savannah River monitoring, the contaminants, and our findings. Radiological monitoring of Savannah River. We monitor for tritium, gross alpha, beta, and gamma. Tritium does continue to be the main contaminant found in the Savannah River. This is the map of all the locations that are sampled for radiological contamination for surface water. For this presentation, I'm going to be speaking mainly about the site upstream from Savannah River site operations, which is Jackson Boat Landing, and then I will be speaking about Steel Creek Boat Landing right here, and then Little Hell Boat Landing, and all the way down here in Screven County at Highway 301 bridge. This is just a graph of the tritium that we found in the Savannah River site, in the Savannah River over the last, it didn't turn out so well on the side here. The years are all squished up, but from 2010 to 2015, these are the tritium results. From Jackson Boat Landing, Steel Creek Boat Landing, Little Hell Boat Landing, and then Burton's Ferry. Burton's Ferry is the one down on Highway 301, which is way downstream. As you can see, Jackson Boat Landing, which is upstream, shows some tritium, and this is what we would consider probably around background. And then as you get down past the Savannah River, right at the edge, right at the very bottom part of Savannah River site, Steel Creek Boat Landing is a little bit higher. And then Little Hell Boat Landing, it does drop back down and then stays almost pretty much the same from Little Hell to Burton's Ferry. So, but when you're talking about drinking water standards, the drinking water standard is 20,000 picocuries per liter. This is in picocuries per liter. You can tell you're way under, even at the highest that we've seen at Steel Creek Boat Landing. This is 2,500, so it's a big difference there. And these are yearly averages based on weekly composite samples that we take. We consider Jackson Boat Landing as being a background since it's upstream from Savannah River site operations. This is the alpha in the Savannah River. Jackson, we don't collect alpha for Little Hell Boat Landing, so that one was taken off of the chart, but you do have Jackson Boat Landing, which is upstream, Steel Creek, and then Burton's Ferry downstream. As you can tell, it's lower at Jackson than it is at Steel Creek and Burton's Ferry, but with alpha and with beta, you'll see that we get sporadic hits, but even these averages may be based on maybe one detection. So even if you see that 25, that doesn't mean that that's like, it doesn't happen very often. These averages are based on monthly composites, as not a, well, they are collected weekly and then composited into monthly composites and then averaged that way. This is the beta in the Savannah River. This is all in picocuries per liter, by the way. Again, as you can tell, it's just sporadic. It's not really any kind of like, you know, upstream is much lower than downstream. We haven't had any gamma detections over the past few years, so I didn't make a chart on that, but these are the alpha and the beta. We do non-radiological monitoring of Savannah River as well, but all of the sampling that is done for non-radiological monitoring is done on-site, so there's no river samples to really speak of. The results are comparable to the background waters of the state for non-rads. There are some samples done by the stateside DHEC as opposed to the ESOP part of DHEC, and I did look back at those, and for non-radiological monitoring, and everything was basically the same as background other streams and lakes and rivers on Savannah River, on the state of South Carolina. These are the parameters that we monitor for non-radiological monitoring. They're used to indicate water quality in freshwater streams around South Carolina. In all, we did 3,700 individual analyses in 2014. And out of those, 134 of these individual parameters exceeded the South Carolina EPA standards or other recommended guidelines. But like I said, they are also still right in line with the rest of South Carolina streams. I wasn't asked about fish monitoring, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in there because there's not really a whole lot to tell about the surface water as far as looking into mercury and cesium and strontium. So for fish monitoring, we test for tritium, cesium, strontium, mercury, and other metals and other selected metals. A portion of the fish fillets are used for analyzing for mercury and metals, and then the remainder of the fillets are then combined and analyzed for gamma-emitting isotopes and tritium. The non-edible composites consisting of the spine, the ribs, and the tails are analyzed for strontium. This is the map of the locations that are sampled for fish. You've got, this is the new bluff lock and dam upstream from Savannah River site, and then these are the creek mouths coming down off of Savannah River site. And then this is, again, is Burton Ferry boat landing. And then this is the background that I'll show on the charts later. This is Combahee River. All right, so this is a chart of the tritium and the edible bass portion. This is in picocuries per liter. They take the fish fillet and then get the water out of the fish fillet and then analyze it for tritium. Tritium levels tend to be the highest along the streams of Savannah River site. This is the new Savannah River Bluff Lock and Dam, and you can tell there's nothing to show there, which is well upstream of Savannah River site. And then once you get to Savannah River site, you are seeing a little bit of tritium in the fish, and then 4 miles Still Creek, and then it kind of falls back down a little bit to Highway 301.
The background location, which obviously there's nothing to show there, that one is the Combahee River. Again, as you can see, there's no real standards from EPA for tritium in fish, so we can use the drinking water standard. It's still well below 20,000 picocuries per liter for any of them. And this was just one random fish. That's not really, we say it's an average, but it's really only one fish. Tritium has been detected upstream of SRS, but only occasionally and at low levels. This is the cesium in the edible bass, and cesium's detected in all of the samples for edible bass over the whole entire, upstream and downstream, and as well as background at low levels. Strontium as well is detected at every single one of the locations at low levels, including the background and upstream. Strontium this is done in the bones. This is analyzed from the bones of the fish, so this is usually discarded and not eaten by humans. This is the tritium in the edible catfish portion. As you can see, there was a small detection back in 2014. Oh, no, that was, yeah, in 2014 at the upper, at the Savannah River Bluff Lock and Dam. And then you do see a little bit more once you get to the site streams, and then nothing at the background location in Combahee River. So cesium 137 in the edible catfish. Again, you do get sporadic cesium in both of the what we would consider background locations, and then you do see it in some of the other locations as well. And this is strontium in the non-edible catfish. Again, you see, even in the upstream from Savannah Riverside and in the background, you're seeing almost kind of the same trend for strontium in fish all over the board there. All right, mercury in bass. This is in milligrams per kilogram. Although small amounts of mercury were released to SRS environment from site operations, the majority of mercury is a result of atmospheric fallout from coal-burning power plants. You do see mercury in every single location, even in background and in upstream from Savannah Riverside. That was in the bass. This is in catfish. So, again, all over the board you see it at every single location, even in the upstream and the background. Even the background was even higher than some of the on-site streams. In summary, SRS operations do have a negligible effect on the Savannah River when speaking of radiological contamination. But any questions?
All right, I think we'll start going around the room. I had one. I know the slides aren't numbered. Is there a reason that the alpha and beta aren't captured in one of the, is it Steel Creek? Or is it Jackson? No. It's Little Hill. Is there a reason that Little Hill doesn't have the alpha and beta?
You're speaking of the river water
Mhm.
itself. So then, those just are not done for alpha beta. We do a lot of different locations for that, but just that one. I don't guess I can go back to it.
Sure.
You start it over so I can go back to it or something. It's just not done for alpha and beta or gamma, so that's why it's not on the chart. But
Is there a reason that it's not?
no, it's just that we do a smaller portion of those locations for alpha, beta, and gamma.
So it's something to look at. Thank you. Susan?
Susan Corbett, CAB, thank you for that presentation. I have a couple questions here. So where is this tritium coming from? How is it getting in their water? What's the release? What are the release points? Can anybody from DOE tell me that? Because I'm just wondering, where is it coming from?
I mean, it's coming from on-site.
I know, but where is it being released from?
I have an
Mr.
answer.
DOE, we have tritium in some of our groundwater plumes that then make it to the stream.
Right.
But I think Michael might have a better answer than I do.
Right, McMichael, Department of Energy. As Jim mentioned, there are a number of different sites where there's some tritium in the groundwater. The 4 Mile branch, if I remember right, is where you captured that. I believe that point is also downstream of Plant Vogel. So given the information that they've presented there, it's difficult to differentiate whether that comes from some of the heat exchangers from Plant Vogel or from the site.
Okay, so you're not sure where the tritium is coming. How about the cesium and strontium? Is that do we have a point of? Is it old from the old operations? I mean, it doesn't have a very long half-life, so why are we still seeing it? Is it still being released in some form? Is it coming through the water tables too?
Well, cesium does have a long half-life. It's in the neighborhood of 30 years.
30 years,
so
right.
The site's been operating. That's 2 half-lives. There is cesium in the sediments. The fish and the aquatic plants will pick that up, and the fish will eat that. So
Okay.
that's most likely where it's coming for the cesium.
And you think that's old cesium?
That is correct. That's not new release cesium.
It's not new releases. So, are there fish advisories posted along the river? Because a lot of people subsistence fisher people that live along these areas, poorer communities that need to fish and eat. Are there fish advisories up to warn them about these contaminants?
There are fish advisories. They're not necessarily for the alpha, beta, cesium, or strontium, but as these, what we're seeing is very low, and as long as people adhere to the DHEC advisories for fish consumption for mercury, they would not be impacted by the radiological.
Well, I disagree with that, but that's you can say that. But
If I could add, Susan, if you don't mind if I add, we do have a huge education effort for our fish advisories, so that we can, we like to get that information out there so that people can use it on their fish consumption. So it's all over our website, and we work with DNR, for example, to have that information, at points where fisher people can access that information. So we do a lot to get that the fish advisories out to the public so they have the information they need.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I think Mike mentioned that Plant Vogel also has emissions of tritium and some of these other radionuclides that are contributing to the results we're seeing up there, at least for some locations. Doesn't also the Barnwell low-level waste disposal facility and the Olin Corporation on the Georgia side make contributions to things like these radionuclides as well as mercury?
I can't really speak on that. I don't know the answer to that, but I can get back to you with that answer if you'd like me to. I don't know that they have any impact on them or not. I don't know.
That's fine. I do find it interesting that almost for every one of these contaminants that you're sampling for, that even upriver of the Savannah River site, that they are being detected. So,
I mean, not just upriver. I mean, this is a whole different river over here. This is the Combahee River, which
Yeah.
is not impacted by Savannah River site at all.
right.
So, I mean, you're seeing detections of cesium and strontium even in a river that has nothing to do with Savannah River site.
Right.
So
Very interesting. Thank you.
this could be from fallout. I mean,
Bob, did you have something?
Excuse me, Bob Dorcap. Beth, I live in Beaufort County, and of course that's one of the reasons why I've been asked to serve on this advisory board. So, you know, as far as tritium levels, say way downstream on the Savannah River, where the intake valves are for the Beaufort-Jasper Water District, does South Carolina DHEC look for any tritium that far downriver, or you just feel it's unnecessary? Could you comment on that?
we do. We test the drinking water actually at the facilities at Beaufort Jasper, and they're normally somewhere around 200, 300 picocuries per liter at the facility itself. So that's basically background level. But yes, we do monitor the drinking water facilities at Beaufort Jasper, Perrysburg plant, and
Chelsea.
the other one.
Chelsea.
Chelsea, thank you. My brain went dead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Jim?
Jim Lyon. Previous presentations, it appeared that tritium was a net zero addition from the Savannah River plant. The same amount of tritium that comes into the plant leaves the plant. In other words, the contaminant is already in the river when it arrives here. Water taken from the river for use here and then released back in the Savannah River is basically has the same or less tritium in it than when it came on. So, you know, identifying source may be a problem, but obviously there's a source upriver. And this is true of other, well, heavy metals and so forth.
Susan, did you have another question? No. Oh, David? Okay. I think you do have any other questions from around the table? All right, thank you. Tom?
Thank you.
Tom, did you have anything else for your committee?
No, not till it's after lunch.
After lunch. All right, I know we have some time left on the agenda. Do we want to see if there are any public comments or public questions? Pat?
Yes, Pat McGuire with DOE. Anticipating we may be a little early, Michael Mikolanis checked to see if Brian Hennessy would be able to maybe come a little bit earlier rather than waiting till after lunch. And so I think he is en route.
Sure.
And so that may help a little bit. So he's not here yet, but he soon will be here.
That sounds good.
Mike Mikolanis, DOE. I expect Brian should be here within the next 15 minutes
15
or so.
minutes? Okay, do we feel comfortable with doing strategic and legacy management now? Is that all right? And move that part up while we wait for Brian? Are we allowed to move it that early with the
Your person, it's your call.
Well, I don't want to take a vote because I don't want that to get contentious and have things thrown at me. But are we okay as a group doing strategic and legacy management now since they don't have a presentation but just voting? Is that good with everyone? And Bob, I know that's your committee. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am. I can do the full committee report and then the voting on the recommendation.
That would be great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, my name is Bob Dorr. I am the Strategic and Legacy Management Committee Chairperson. I want to welcome everyone to the Savannah Riverside, to the, I want to welcome you to our CAB meeting, our full board meeting. And we're here in New Wellington, which is not far from Savannah Riverside. Today is July 25th. This is the committee report. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce our committee members. And again, my name is Bob Dorr. I am the chair. Our vice chair is Gil Allensworth, David Hoyle, Clint Nagel, Kathy Patterson, George Snyder, and Mary Weber. You can see on the next slide our committee purpose, which we've read into the record in the past, and it's there for everyone here to see. Next slide, please. Recommendation status updates. Okay, we've got our one open recommendation, recommendation 323, where our committee, when we have our committee meetings, we get an update from DOE regarding safety procedures and emergency preparedness response at Savannah Riverside. So that's been an ongoing update that we get, and it's good information for us with our committee. We have a draft recommendation, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. It's on employee recruitment and retention. We had our discussion in regards to it yesterday. We made, with the suggestions that we did receive from CAB members and the public, Tom Clements in particular, we made two minor changes to this recommendation, which I'll go over before we do the vote. Next slide, please. Okay, I just want to make sure we note our next committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August 16th from 6:30 p.m. to 8:20 p.m. It'll be right here in the new Ellington Community Center. So all are welcome, and it should be a good meeting. So I think right now we have no presentations for this committee, from this committee to the full board. So let's go right into the discussion and voting on this recommendation, employee recruitment and retention. Now, I just want to note the two minor changes that were made. In the background information, last paragraph, offline, Tom Clements had pointed out to me, I used an acronym or a cliche, if you will. Outside, we changed it to outside of the box. The idea here was to, the suggestions we're giving to DOE are not typical of the contracting that DOE has with its contractors. So that was good that Tom pointed that out to me. And then, of course, the other change that was made was in recommendation number 5, and Lewis Walters had made that suggestion, and you all accepted that we included the recruiting efforts to include local high schools, as well as these women's colleges, and in addition to minority serving institutions. Okay, so I think we've got a good working document. Unless there's additional discussion at this point, I would think that we'd want to vote on this recommendation. I think there's a question.
Jim?
Jim Lyon again, probably being obnoxious. I'm reading this, and your second paragraph, Department of Energy concluded in their year-end review that this oversight will lead to continued processing of tank waste. The gist of the second paragraph is that they're doing exactly...
Jim, I think that's a different recommendation.
Yeah.
I've got the wrong one.
Yeah, we're on employee recruitment and retention.
Forget it.
We'll save that one for later.
That's right, Jim. Are there any other last minute comments in regards to this recommendation from the CAB? Nina, I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. All right, all in favor of moving forward with this recommendation, please signify by raising your right hand.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay, all noes, please raise your right hand. And all abstentions? No abstain.
1, 2.
All right, so carried.
Okay, I want to thank the CAB for the support on this recommendation. It'll be interesting to see the response from DOE. And with that, I have no further any other things to bring up with the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to take a public comment period while we have a couple of minutes? All right. Do you want to take a few minute break while we wait for Brian, or is there something else that we... 10 minutes? Is that good for everyone, unless there's something else that you think we could add in? I don't want to break up nuclear materials, and I think that might go longer than 10 minutes. So, yeah, let's just take a 10-minute break until Brian gets here. Thank you. I'll go slower. I'll just talk slower. before Tom takes it back over, part two, we just had a quick announcement. If y'all would keep your eyes open for a beige purse for a Miss Goodson, if you just happen to see a beige purse lying around. All right, Tom, you ready?
I'm ready. If Brian's ready. Right here. Good. All right. Okay, Brian, we appreciate you changing your schedule and coming early. You're on board. Brian Hennessy on Appendix E. Final Appendix E.
Hennessy, work for DOE, and I'm the Federal Facility Agreement Project Manager. Okay. Is Susan here today? Susan Fulmer? Susan Fulmer. No, Heather Cathcart's here. Susan Fulmer with DHEC is my counterpart there, and Rob Pope is my EPA counterpart. I don't think he's here. Diedre Lloyd is here. Hi, Diedre. And good morning, Citizens Advisory Board and guests. I couldn't make it to your meeting in, was it Savannah in May? Or down there somewhere? Couldn't make it. I appreciate the opportunity to do this now. This is the annual update on FFA Appendix E. It was actually approved in February of 2016, but let's go over it a little bit. There'll be some of this material is going to be repetitive for some of you veterans and long-timers, but I hope it won't be too hard to endure, and I hope it'll be informative for everybody. What am I pointing at? Okay, my purpose is to provide, this goes back to an old CAB recommendation 279, which requested these updates. This is the information briefing on the Rev 1 Appendix E submittal for this fiscal year. And this topic is also on the annual work plan of the Facilities Disposition and Site Remediation Committee. First, just a little overview of Appendix E, or Appendix E overall. I'm not going to give the FFA overview, but Appendix E is obviously an attachment to the FFA. It's updated annually, and what it is a life cycle list of all the cleanup milestones for the Savannah River site. It's made up of 3 parts, E1, E2, and E3, that are divided by years. E1 deals with the first out year, in this case, fiscal year 2017. E2 has the milestones for fiscal year 2018, and E3 has the milestones for 2019 and beyond to the end of the program. As I said, we update it every year, submit it for approval to DHEC and EPA. Normally, the first submittal is in November each year. Normally, there are comments, things we have to resolve, and the Rev 1 is generally the final approved version. So before I get into what makes up Appendix E, I thought I'd go over some of the types of documents and activities that are listed in Appendix E that populate those parts 1, 2, and 3. So first, there's a remedial investigation work plan. A remedial investigation is the process by which we come to understand the conditions at a potential waste site or release site through process knowledge, through sampling of soils, groundwater, et cetera. And the work plan is just the plan for doing that investigation. It has to be approved by EPA and the state before we begin our investigation of any waste site. Following the investigation and the interpretation of the data, comes the report on the remedial investigation and an estimate of the baseline risk or baseline risk assessment. And that's the risk to human health from various amounts of exposure to the contaminants at this waste site, and also environmental risk, risk to other receptors, other non-human receptors. The feasibility study comes next. After there's agreement on what the conditions are at the waste site, what the problems are, if any, that require a response action by DOE, the feasibility study is a analysis of different remedial alternatives for that waste site. The proposed plan is the document that you see when it is released for public review and comment. It identifies the alternative, the cleanup alternative that the three agencies, DOE, EPA, and DHEC, prefer. Describes the problems at the waste site, explains why this is the preferred alternative, and describes the other alternatives that were considered. There's usually a 45-day public comment period. In some rare cases, the comment period is only 30 days. Then after public comments are received and considered, a record of decision is issued, and this is the formal declaration of the remedy that is going to be implemented for the waste site. After the ROD is issued, a record of decision, sometimes called a ROD abbreviation. The Remedial Action Implementation Plan is the plan that requires EPA and DHEC approval on how the nuts and bolts of how the remedy is going to be designed, constructed, and operated. So there are other milestones besides just documents. There are some activities that also show up on the milestones list. One is a field start, and after the remedial investigation work plan is approved, the investigation has an official beginning, and that has to occur by that field start date. It's the start of the investigation, not the cleanup, but the investigation. The remedial action start is the beginning of the actual implementation of the remedy. And there are some other milestones that are unique to our liquid waste tanks. One milestone is called complete operational closure. It occurs when the tank is isolated, grouting is finished in accordance with the closure module. And there's another milestone called complete bulk waste removal efforts, and this is defined precisely in the FFA to mean finishing the efforts to remove the bulk or most of the waste, including salt cake, sludge solids, and contaminated liquids from a tank, leaving only a heel. Anyone have any questions to this point? Unless there's a understanding that questions are held to the end, I don't mind if anyone has a question, okay? Okay, there's a very important process that happens under all sites that are being cleaned up under the law called CERCLA, the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act. And that is, all the remedies have to be reviewed every 5 years to make sure that they are still effective, serving the purpose for which they were selected and implemented. So, as you can imagine, over time, as we have selected and implemented more and more remedies, the number of remedies has increased. Last year it was 52, and the 5-year remedy review report was over 2,000 pages, and just awful thing to prepare and I'm sure to review and to get finalized. So we decided, the three parties decided that we could break these remedies up into 5 groups by similar type and do 5 smaller reviews, do 1 a year, and that way every 5 years the remedies would stay on each of the remedies would still be on a 5-year review cycle. But it created a more manageable document to review, prepare and review. So, yeah, this is a practice I expect to see adopted by other federal facilities in particular, where there are a large number of waste sites that have to be addressed, and the number of records of decision keeps getting larger and larger. So this was, the FY16 Appendix E was the first time where we put in the dates for these individual 5-year remedy reviews. So this table is here just to point out that prior to FY16, there were no deliverable dates for those 5-year remedy reviews, but now there are. There is a small lagoon out in the central shops portion of the site called the G Area Oil Seepage Basin. Nobody seems to know why or to remember when it was given that name, but there was a schedule agreed upon by EPA and DHEC for that unit. The field start will be in a month or two. By September 2016. We are currently finalizing the sampling plan that will, or the remedial investigation plan that will, that field start will implement. And then it will culminate in a record of decision through about 3 years later and a remedial action in 2020. It's not a highly contaminated waste site by any means, but as a couple of years ago, we already had a lot of data on it, and we decided to just get on with it and finish this one up. So some key milestones in this year's Appendix E. I'm sure that you've heard on one or more occasions about the D Area Ash Project. There are some milestones in, there's a milestone at the very beginning of FY17, right there. The removal action start for the 1D ash basin. It's the largest of the ash basins, if you can picture that. There will be a statement of basis proposed plan in 2018, and this will be a remedy. This will be a proposed plan and a record of decision for the entire D area ash complex. The 2 ash basins, the coal pile runoff basin, and the ash landfill. By that time, the ash basins, the coal pile runoff basin, and the landfill will be virtually complete in the field, and this will be a proposed plan and record of decision that just addresses the residual remedial needs that there are. In June of next year, we will issue a record of decision on the wetland area at Dunbarton Bay. This is a low-lying area out by the P reactor of ash overflow from the P area ash basin. And we're going to issue that ROD next June, and 15 months later start that remedial action. The lower 3 runs integrator operable unit, and you know this is the site stream that has the long tail that flows down in Allendale County and has a dam on it that forms Parr Pond. The lower 3 runs operable unit has 2 industrial areas in it, P and R area. Both of them are complete from a cleanup standpoint, at least the surface units. The reactors are closed, all the waste units are cleaned up, and so we are ready to begin the process of selecting a remedy, beginning with remedial investigation, baseline risk assessment a year from now, remedy selection about 3 years after that. And there are some liquid waste tank milestones near term in Appendix E, both at the end of FY17, complete bulk waste removal efforts for 3 tanks, complete operational closure of 2 tanks, and these are still in Appendix E, although they are, of course, subject to the discussions, or they're subject to change based on any discussions that we have with the state and EPA. Let's see. Okay, the regulatory approval of Appendix E came with a couple of conditions. South Carolina DHEC asked that we, it's not on this slide, but South Carolina DHEC asked that we change the dates for the other integrator operable units, those being Upper Three Runs, 4 Mile Branch, Penn Branch, Steel Creek, and the Savannah River floodplain swamp, to align with the closures of the industrial areas that potentially impact those streams. 2 years back, we had moved out a lot of the industrial areas based on extended missions for H Canyon, for K&L reactors, for the National Lab. So those mission extensions are going to keep some of these areas active. And as a principle, we don't do the final assessment of the streams until all the potential inputs of contamination to those streams are no longer active. So we're taking the action in the FY17. In next year's Appendix E, we will adjust those integrator operable unit dates to align with the mission dates for the associated industrial areas. EPA expressed a couple of conditions. They wanted us to look at options for getting the moderator or heavy water out of the C reactor. It's been stored at a -40 level in the C reactor for many years, and it's one of the reasons why the C reactor couldn't be decommissioned in any near term. So they've asked us to look at moving it out of the C reactor. And they also, EPA also asked us to look at the use of the C reactor building for national training. The South Carolina National Guard uses the C reactor. Centera, our security contractor, had been using the C reactor. I don't know that they still are. But EPA asked us to look at the early action record of decision for the C reactor and to see if those uses were not mentioned as potential uses in that early action ROD, we may need to modify that ROD to include such use. Let's see, back in May, I would have told you that there was going to be a document coming out for public comment. It did. The public comment period started in May. It ran through early July, I think. May have just concluded. Well, let's see. It was a 30-day, so I guess it ran out in late June. We did receive public comments. They're currently being considered and evaluated by the core team. I guess I could say that the response to the comment will be included when the ROD is issued, but the comment had to do with selecting a different alternative, one that was not evaluated, involving beneficial reuse of the ash from the 1D ash basin and disposal of some of the ash off of the Savannah River site instead of closing the ash basin in place as the current plan has us do. That is everything I have. These are some links to the entire federal facility agreement, including the current, most recent approved versions of all the appendices, including Appendix E. So I'll take any questions that you might have.
Susan?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. I'm done.
All right, thank you so much. I guess at this point, we will officially break for lunch now. Tina, do you want to say 1 o'clock, or do you want 1 o'clock? All right, thank y'all.